I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear.
I, Jimmy Carter.
I, Barack Hussein Obama.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
So help you God. So help me God.
So help me God.
So help me God. So help me God.
So help you God. So help me God.
So help me God.
What if I told you that a fight over a tavern keeper's daughter, a woman accused of being loose and impure, brought down the entire United States government? Welcome to the world of Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States. The center of the storm began with a woman named Peggy Eaton, the beautiful and witty wife of Andrew Jackson's Secretary of War, John Eaton. Peggy was the daughter of a tavern owner, and rumors had followed her for years that she was a little too friendly with the men who stayed at her father's inn. What's more, her first husband had died at sea, and she married John Eaton just a little too quickly afterwards. The undisputed queen of Washington society, Floride Calhoun, the vice president's wife, and the other cabinet wives were absolutely appalled. They declared Peggy a woman of loose morals and refused to socialize with her. They wouldn't call on her house, they would turn their backs when she entered a room, they snubbed her at every turn. Now, for any other president, this would be an awkward social problem. For Andrew Jackson, the man whose own wife had been destroyed by Washington gossip, this was a declaration of war. He saw the attacks on Peggy as a direct echo of the attacks on his beloved Rachel. He was not going to let it happen again. He called a full cabinet meeting, not to discuss a treaty or a law, but to declare Peggy Eaton chaste as a virgin. He ordered his cabinet members to force their wives to be nice to her. Of course, you can't order people to like someone. They refused. The standoff, which became front-page news, paralyzed the government for 2 years. Jackson, furious and unable to get anything done, finally had enough. In 1831, in an unprecedented move, he demanded the resignations of his entire cabinet just to get rid of the men whose wives were being mean to his friend. It was the ultimate political house cleaning and would go down in history as the Petticoat Affair. He was born on March 15, 1767 in the Waxhaws region on the border of North and South Carolina. His father, Andrew Jackson, died before he was even born, and by the age of 14, the American Revolution had taken the rest of his family. His mother, Elizabeth Hutchinson, and his 2 brothers were all dead, leaving Jackson as an orphan. He bore 2 permanent scars on his head and hand from a British officer's sword, after he refused to polish the man's boots. This brutal childhood forged the man he would become, fiercely independent, intensely loyal to those he cared about, and having a deep, boiling rage against values he associated with Britain, in particular aristocracy and political privilege. He moved to Tennessee and became a lawyer. However, he was more famously known for his gambling, horse racing, and fighting, and this is where he met the absolute love of his life, a woman named Rachel Donaldson Robards. And their love story is the key to understanding everything about him. Rachel was beautiful, vibrant, and unfortunately, already married. She was trapped in an abusive, unhappy marriage to a man named Louis Robards, who was pathologically jealous. When Rachel met Andrew Jackson, sparks flew instantly. They fell deeply in love. Believing her husband would grant her a divorce, Rachel and Andrew eloped and married in 1791. There was just one tiny little problem. The divorce wasn't actually finalized. For 2 years, America's future president and first lady were living in sin, and she was technically a polygamist according to the law. When they found out, they were shocked and remarried legally, but the damage was done. For the rest of their lives, their political enemies would use this scandal against them, calling Rachel a dirty adulteress and Jackson a man who stole another man's wife.
And Andrew Jackson never, ever forgave them.
Anyone who mocked Rachel's honor had to answer to him personally, usually at 10 paces. He fought an estimated 100 duels in his lifetime, most of them verbal, but many of them with pistols. In 1806, he fought a duel with a man named Charles Dickinson over payments for a forfeited horse race. Jackson let Dickinson shoot first. The bullet hit his chest, shattering a rib and lodging itself permanently near his heart. Jackson started bleeding profusely, but didn't flinch. He calmly took his aim and shot Charles Dickinson dead. But it wasn't all violence in politics. Back home, Jackson built the life that was surprisingly genteel. His home, a beautiful mansion outside Nashville, Tennessee, was called the Hermitage. It started as a humble log cabin complex, but eventually became a grand Greek Revival-style plantation house with towering white columns. This was his sanctuary. It had lavish gardens designed by Rachel, fine European furniture, and a stable of world-class racehorses. His family life was also complex. After his own tragic childhood, he craved a family. He and Rachel were never able to have biological children, so they adopted her nephew and named him Andrew Jackson Jr. But the Hermitage was always full of children. They took in and raised at least a dozen other wards and orphans over the years. He was a loving but strict father figure. Aside from the fancy French food during the White House dinners, his true tastes were simple and Southern. He loved mutton, venison, and a country staple called leather breeches. That's green beans dried in the pod and then cooked later. And the other thing about this president is that he sure loved throwing a good party. And this brings us to our fun fact. In 1837, for his final public reception at the White House, Jackson received a gift from a New York farmer, a 1,400-pound wheel of cheddar cheese. He let it age for 2 years and then threw open the doors of the White House and invited the public to come eat it. 10,000 people showed up. In 2 hours, the entire block of cheese was gone. The White House reportedly smelled of cheese for weeks. It was a perfect symbol of his presidency. Chaotic, a little gross, and for everyone.